everybody to Booming Encore's Trending Topics Talk. This is where we actually chat with some experts about the latest trends for baby boomers, retirement, and aging. My name is Susan Williams, and I'm the founder of Booming Encore. And today I'm delighted to be joined by author and career expert Eileen Williams, no relation, by the way, and Joe Casey, retirement coach and principal from Retirement Wisdom. So welcome to you both. Delighted you're here.
Thank you.
So let's get right into it, guys. The idea is really let's chat about what's been going on. The last couple weeks, I think, Joe, thanks very much for pointing this topic out. There's the whole buzzword around called unretirement. And by this, in the articles, they're writing about people who are actually retiring and then actually rejoining the workforce. Joe, in your practice, are you actually seeing this happening?
We are, and we see two things going on that people are a little bit surprised by. The first is how long retirement can last today. I think all the systems lead us to think of retirement as actually relatively short, but it can last up to 20 or 30 years, and sometimes people don't expect that. Second thing is that we sometimes can forget, and we see this with people we work with, the non-financial benefits we get from work. It provides a structure, status, really social connectivity in many ways, camaraderie, and we have to find ways to replace that. And people are sometimes surprised by the lack of those things because you can focus more on getting away from work as opposed to where you're going to.
And Eileen, are you finding that people are actually going back into the same field, or are they changing things up, or are you seeing any sort of indicators about this whole unretirement aspect and how it's actually changing things in the workforce?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, I had just been looking at an article that said that about 2 out of 5 of retirement age people between 65 and 70 are returning to work one way or another. And I think one of the things that work is so important to us is, again, that sense of purpose, that sense of contribution. And sometimes we might not get that in paid employment that we had in our younger years. So this is an opportunity to really give back to the world and kind of continue that boomer, we want to make the world a better place outlook. So there's a lot of volunteer and socially conscious work opportunities out there.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's an excellent idea about the whole idea around purpose, and maybe this returning back to the workforce is giving that sense of purpose, that sense of I've got something to get up for in the morning, and for lack of a better word, a reason to keep moving. Now, shifting gears completely, there was one article that actually came out of the UK, and it was around digital inclusion. And it sort of kind of woke me up a bit, because as much as like we're sitting here, we're well connected, and a lot of the people that I know are well connected. But out of the UK, and I'm going to just give you some numbers here, they're finding that as services are migrating online, there's 4.8 million people over the age of 55 who don't have internet access. And so as a result, they're being left behind. And, you know, a lot of companies are now actually moving a lot of their services and their quote deals to the internet. And so these people just don't have access. So this whole digital divide is something that's something that maybe needs to be considered. What do you guys think? Do you agree with that? Do you think it's a North American problem as well, or something we should be concerned about?
Eileen.
Well, I was reading another article on this aspect, and they said that about, I think as of 2015, 15% of North Americans, I guess, or the United States, I'm not sure exactly, but was not online. And of course, it was disproportionately older people, people in rural areas, and socially and economically disadvantaged people. So the problem is there. 15% is a pretty big number, but I'm kind of not sure how we can address that and make that change. Do you have any thoughts, Joe?
I think there's good news and bad news. I took a look at the Pew Research Center, who looks at this in the U.S. every year right around this time. I looked at last year's. And the good news is that it is increasing. It's getting better year over year, and it's getting easier and easier. But my only suggestion is to look at what I do, meaning I have a 16-year-old at home, and he is my single source of technical support. So I think connecting in with younger people, especially in cities, I think it can be there can be programs developed to connect people who are younger who can help demystify technology. It can be real helpful. And then I think there needs to be some type of community and government support to make the technology more accessible to different people. Because the Pew Research Center broke it down. It's an economic issue. It's at the lower. It's a step down. The higher levels of income don't have this issue, and it gets worse as you go lower.
Yeah, and I remember actually reading about libraries, for instance, and how the proximity of libraries to everybody is pretty central for the most part. I mean, unless you're really, really rural. And maybe there's an opportunity here for libraries to play a support role, actually have some technology stations, some technology support. It also allows people to be socially engaged and maybe, go out and connect with people actually in a social setting such as a library. I mean, maybe there's some opportunity there. I don't know.
And Bill and Melinda Gates and the Gates Foundation are very active with libraries. They've got something like the library program or the Gates Library program where they're doing things like that. And locally, because I've done a lot of workshops in libraries, they have, which I love this idea, teenagers helping older people. And, so it's like you get cross-generational interactions, but plus, you get the benefit of learning from those, as you just mentioned, that are young, who are younger than we are.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it is something that we just need to, as much as everything is moving so fast, we just need to make sure we take everybody with us, and that nobody's actually left out or unserviced as a result of this. But I think it is possibly something that is a concern in North America. And it just needs to stay, top of mind at the same time when people are introducing services. Okay, last topic for today, because we want to keep moving. There was a really interesting article about Iris Apfel. I don't know if you can actually see this. Remember Iris, she's a fashion icon, and she's at 96. And the CNBC wrote an article about her, and I loved the title. It was about a 96-year-old who was probably cooler than you, which is the case. So she's definitely stayed very current. And in this article, they talked about her background, and they talked about some of her life lessons for aging. I'll just share a couple with you. Like one, don't obsess about your age, or pick a partner who celebrates your success. Care about your own opinion above anyone else's. And I love this one, don't pretend you're younger than you are. And she even used the example of if you're getting a facelift at a certain age, don't think you're going to look 35. You're just going to look your age, like with a facelift. So I thought, coming from her, this was, quite resonant. Is there any sort of life lesson that you would like to share, or you have that you kind of go, geez, I wish I knew then what I know now? Eileen, you want to kick this one off?
Well, actually, I have to say, I had the rare opportunity to actually shake hands with Iris Apfel. I met her once very briefly, and she's just as dynamic in person as she is in that article, I have to say. But one of the things I think is really important as we get older is to continually stretch ourselves. One of the sayings is that life begins outside of your comfort zone. And I think that's really true, because it's so inhibiting to, same old is same old. And in order to grow and continue to feel excited about every day and look towards the future, we have to sometimes force ourselves to do new things, especially ones that kind of frighten us in the beginning. So I think that kind of, consciously stepping out of your comfort zone is a really important one.
Yeah, excellent suggestion. Joe, what about you?
Well, she's definitely much cooler than me. And I've embraced her suggestion to dress your age. So I've mimicked that. I've adopted that today as my personal contribution. But she highlighted a number of things. One is, you have to think young and to stay doing that. And I remember saying that I heard recently talking about when you're in your 20s, you think everyone's talking about you and thinking about you. And when you reach your 60s, as I have recently, you realize they're just thinking about themselves.
So true, isn't it?
Exactly. And I think one of the things I've learned about the aging process in my studies is that there's much more that's modifiable and controllable than we think. So I think to really focus on things we can control. Some things are genetic and we can't control, but how we think is really one of those that she highlighted that we have a lot of control over, and we can think young.
Most definitely. I think the one that, when I was giving this some thought, I thought the one that popped in my mind is don't worry so much. I don't know about you guys, but I think back to all the things I worried about over the course of my life, and probably out of that 100%, maybe 2% of the time it actually came to fruition. So all that energy that I spent worrying about something that would never actually happen, I keep thinking, man, if I had that time back, I certainly would have done it differently. And so I'm trying to definitely take that forward and just, as the as the song goes, don't worry, be happy. Kind of comes to mind. Well, guys, that wraps up this week's segment of Booming Encore's Trending Topics Talk. So I'd like to thank you both so much for spending the time with me. Really appreciate it. And thanks to everybody for watching, and we'll talk to you all soon.